presents the UK's most irrepressible presenters in a Christmas Clash of the Titans.
TalkSport would like to point out that the following feature contains some pretty strong opinions, some outlandish conjecture, and 4 nuts, including 1 cheery wee-faced Brazil nut.
Mike Dickin, Tommy Boyd, James Well, and Alan Brazil here on the Clash of the Titans. Now, we're talking fox hunting. Tommy, you didn't really get a chance to get a word in there with the guys. Mike, he's grown up on farmland, the community, very much part of it, disgusted how it's going at the moment. James, he thinks a lot of them are thugs, the way fox hunting has never been the same for many, many years, according to James. Tommy, how do you feel about it?
Well, I have to say this. I'm for the abolition of fox hunting. I hope it happens in the new year, in the new parliament, and that the thing dies a death. For purely very selfish reasons, which is that I don't want to have to host one more phone-in or phone call about this appallingly overblown, magnified out of all proportion, minute social problem. That's all it is. There are 200 hunts. They've got about 70 or 80 people. They kill, what, I don't know, a fox every month or something.
Yeah, not many.
As Mike said a moment ago, quite rightly, far more die underneath our juggernauts than at the hands of the hunters. What I think is important is that people recognise 2 things. 1, people who go hunting love it. It's got nothing to do with controlling the countryside. They love it. And similarly, people who go out sabbing love it. And it's as much a sport for them, a kind of a blood sport for them.
If it's banned, they're both going to be very sad people.
They're both going to have to find something else.
Well, the one thing I'm surprised on it, you say it's going to be you want to see it banned, and I fully appreciate and endorse your reason, and that is, I don't want to ever host another phone.
It's when you see on the screen, you know, mad,
because
intense,
God knows. I mean,
real fox hunting, your heart just, goes.
Why are these
floor.
anti-hunt people so dull? Because you so much want to be on their side, yet they're so appallingly dull.
I know. My brother is a hunt sab, and one day he came back. There was a family party, so I was at home, and he drove into the drive, and he said, been out sabbing, and I said, great, did you save a fox? He said, no. I went and had a look at his...
I killed a couple of horses.
Well, no, it's this. I want to ask you guys on this one. No, actually, I'm sure the orange thing happened, Mike, but generally speaking, they do care about animals. They really do. But there was this, you see. On the front of his car that he had used to drive 60 miles to and from this hunt, right, to try and save a fox, right, there were plastered
Not
dead
insects.
bodies
Don't
of
tell me
thousands.
Oh, Tommy, don't!
Insects.
Yeah.
Now, if
insects were furry and ran about in the we would be mad.
So I asked him the question, and this was 10 years ago, and I still haven't had a decent answer from him. How many insects
have you killed?
make a fox?
Yeah.
You know? It's a sizes thing.
Yep.
I've been big game. I've been out doing on safaris, and everybody in the truck, the sealed truck, is going, oh, aren't those giraffes wonderful, because they're big. Oh, the elephants, look. And we do this day in, day out. I was getting bored. Then one day a moth flew in, right? Beautiful moth it was. Wonderful colours. Yeah, you got... They called for the guy with the gun, because we had a guy with a gun just in case the lion got into the truck, okay? They called for the guy with the gun to kill the moth. And he did. He came down and he crushed this beautiful moth. It's a sizes thing. It's the same with whales, you know. We want to save whales because they're bloody big.
But there is another thing, isn't there?
Tuna.
With regard to your own wish for abolition, and as I said, I endorse it. I never want to host another radio phone concerning fox hunting. You're in a no-win situation, whatever you do.
But if they ban it, guys...
But hang on, let me finish this point. You love horse racing, I love horse racing. I think James is next the anti it now and tries to make a fortune at it. But there would be no national hunt racing if we lose hunting.
That's just not true.
I don't think that's most, if not all, national hunt horses learn their tricks and their trade.
Yeah, but Mike, if you abolish that, I think they'd still learn the tricks on the racecourse, rather than out in the woods and the fields.
If it came down to it, the bookies would set up their own stable.
Tell me, guys, politically, right, we hear that most of the Labour MPs are going to vote for the ban. Do they care, these Labour MPs, or is it a case of votes?
MPs generally only care about getting back in again. And, the only thing that makes me really...
I hate the sort of the glee on the faces of these people who go hunting. Because, you know, when they sit around looking, because something's losing its life. As much as I would, if I see a worm on the pavement, I have to pick it up and move it. I don't like the idea of worms being squashed under feet, or people just willy-nilly...
I've been laughed at for doing that. Yeah, I don't care.
No, I don't either.
Really? So, would you really?
Don't take the pee out of us,
I'm not.
Don't you start having a go at us, Brazil.
I seriously do, and I would, if I see a snail in the road... where I'm about to drive, if I see it in time, I will stop picking it up and put it on the roadside.
I do the same with a hedgehog, but the other day I upset people in the bus passing. I was in Yorkshire, and there was a rabbit, well, I say the other day, it's August, there was a rabbit severely with myxomatosis sitting by the side of the road. You know, they're blind, they can just shuffle around, and I had to get out and just bang it over the head.
Yeah.
Because some people in the car had a go at me. I had to go back, they didn't do it again.
Well, this is the ignorance we're talking about, isn't it?
But how do you know it didn't have a cold?
Yeah. You know, Tommy, and don't...
It hasn't got a cold.
I mean, no,
Tommy,
James has got it in the book, got
leave
the
that,
on
Tommy. Leave that for your listeners. Don't try that on me.
I would really worry.
It hasn't got a cold
That's
now,
my diagnosis. Oh, you're not a vet, you're not a vet.
I tell you what, I'm keeping, trust me, I'm keeping my pets away from Emmerdale Farm over here, eh?
Yes.
James Harrier.
Yeah, I think Mike will back me up on this. If you know anything about anything, you will know when a rabbit has myxomatosis and not a cold. Don't be ridiculous.
No, it is cold, but it hasn't got a cold.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Myxomatosis is perfectly obvious to anyone with half an eye, and Tommy's got more than half an eye, and that was a...
And he was trying to wind us up. Yeah. I think, by the way, we must say that stag hunting should have been banned a long time ago.
Agreed.
I've watched stag hunting. Yeah. It is atrocious. It's not a quick kill by any means, and it is...
It is inexcusable.
It's unnecessary. You can shoot a stag quite cleanly, and people do a lot of the time.
And you can shoot the right one as well. I agree with you entirely.
Mate, did you do a lot of shooting as a kid? I went pheasant shooting once, and I couldn't do it. I ended up shooting at trees and stuff like that. I just couldn't do it.
I've got guns now, and I shoot quite a lot, but the only thing I shoot is made of china or clay. I do a lot of china and clay shooting, you know, trap shooting.
I think it's China.
Yeah, we have pigeons. I'm sorry. He's a townie, you see.
Clay pigeons.
Yeah, I've never heard them called.
He's dragged up.
China's what you get in the Ladro factory, isn't it? And you put it on the mantelpiece.
Skeet shooting, they are made of china.
Are they really?
Well, it's a form of china. You wouldn't know, because English china clay, of course, comes from Cornwall. It doesn't
look...
I
suppose you're having a go... Just talking about stag shooting, I suppose it's the jocks who are getting all the blame again, isn't it?
Just because you spend your time in London's posh hotels being drunk and loud, don't think that makes you an honorary Englishman yet.
No.
James, the last time I walked in tram, I heard you before I see you. I thought, hold on a minute.
Nobody
James
will know
in the corner.
what
there he
you're
was,
talking about.
having his breakfast, 3 o'clock in the morning, bottle of champagne and bacon and eggs. Tommy, have you ever shot anything?
No, I haven't. I had a friend who was shot dead, and that sticks in my mind more than...
That's brought the conversation to a close, hasn't it?
Yeah, shot dead in New York.
Yeah.
It was funny, it wasn't funny. I was working with the chap at one of those summer camps, and we shared a cabin, and we each had 6 lads that we, go camping with and stuff. And one weekend he decided to take the weekend off, and he went into New York. And on the Monday, the chief counsellor stood up in front of everybody, and he said, okay, announcements. He said, it's wet, so there'll be no basketball, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. He said, oh, and Mike won't be coming back to us. He was shot dead in New York on Sunday night. And I was absolutely gobsmacked. A lad from London. And there were youngsters there, aged 12 and 13 and 14, who'd been given this news in this way. I didn't know what to do or what to say, or whether I was going to have to do some counselling in the literal, sense of the word, or what. But another counsellor standing next to me just nudged me and just kind of went, well, if you go to New York on a hot, sticky weekend, what do you expect? And
I've been to New York. I never found it to be violent, to be honest with you.
No, but what I think we're talking about guns here at the moment. I don't know how we've got round to talking about guns.
Well, I don't, because Alan Brazil... Do you mind if I come over and get the
wine? The wine. No, I was asking you, Mike shoots.
Yes.
But Claire China says, I went once and forget it. I could not. I couldn't kill him.
We don't need guns. I don't want to fall out with Mike about this. I know they're handsome things and they have a fine heritage, but I think we should just bend the barrels of the whole damn lot.
You mentioned New York. We don't need like America, are we, Mike?
No, actually, if you want the figures, which I checked only very recently, per capita, London is a far more violent city than New York.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I cannot believe that. Honestly, nonsense.
Well, the street crime figures published by the New York Police and published by the Metropolitan Police per capita show...
You know why, don't you?
New York is nowhere near as violent as London.
So we've got all the police trying to find motorists speeding in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, and not getting on with hunting crime.
I'll tell you what, James, I know this is your pet hate, but I have to back James up here. I borrowed a friend of mine, right? I went to football, a DB7, I'm coming down the A1, 1:45 in the morning, seriously.
145 miles an hour.
I was a bit tired, so I was doing the normal, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, flashing lights. Now, on it, early hours of the morning, and I can't believe it, I thought. Check my lights were on, so I pull over. Oh, the arrogance of this policeman was unbelievable.
That's the worst part.
He says,
what were you driving, sorry?
It was an Aston Martin DB7,
right.
but not fast.
Well, that's so what?
I mean, right,
you drive one, Tom.
Not mine. Not mine, Tommy. A friend of mine.
I'd nick one if I was a copper, if I got the chance as well.
Well, anyway, he pulls me over, right, and he says, what was it? He said, Damon. He called me Damon. All right, Damon? You know, Damon Hill. Oh, yeah, very funny. You know, I want to get home. What's the problem?
Oh, they're modernised. That used to be Sterling Moss all the time.
So he said, you're all over the road. I said, don't be silly. I said, I may have moved my left hand to change the tape. I wasn't all over the road. He said, have you been drinking? I thought, oh, here we go. So he said, follow me. I said, I haven't been drinking. He said, follow me. So I sit in his little car. And you know what he said to me? He says, here you go, you've obviously used one of these before. That's what he says to me as he passes me the breathalyzer.
You wouldn't take his number at that particular point to make a complaint.
You are out of order. I says, there's an old lady's getting mugged at the moment. You should be doing something or breaking
Alan,
some
what James said is so right, and I think we all feel this. I mean, I'm not quite sure about Tommy, but there is undoubtedly a vendetta against the motorist at the moment by the police. It's been getting worse and worse. It's encouraged by this particular government, who are anti-car. The police are anti-motorist. The vendetta is from the young, spotty, nylon-shirted copper who has no chance of getting a job anywhere else. He wouldn't even get a job as a bloody window cleaner, but because there is no qualification anymore for getting into the police, if you can walk and talk and stand still for 5 minutes, you've got the job.
Mind you, if someone breaks in your house, you need them. Yeah, but you do need...
They never turn up when you're breaking the house. You make a... If your house is broken into, they phone up and they give you a crime number. They say, we'll come round in the next fortnight. You do 71 miles an hour on the motorway, there's 500 of them.
You know why they like it? They like it because it boosts the clearing up of crime.
It counts as a crime.
No, I've just been told here we've got to get off this subject.
Tommy's... Well, we stay on this subject.
Just quickly, there's a lot in what you guys are saying, but one perspective on this that doesn't really get very much attention, I don't think, is the amount of carnage that there is on our roads. Every time there's a train crash, it dominates the news for a couple of weeks. But I think more people are killed on our roads in the course of an average week than have died in all the train crashes that we've had in this country for about the last 10 years.
There's some mad drivers out there.
The point being, people drive very badly.
Yeah, well, keep the old women off the flipping roads, keep the caravans off the roads, keep the people in the crappy old cars off the roads, and leave Alan in his DB7.
Not my DB7, my friend Roger's.
Mike and I in our Rolls Royces. Give us the space on the roads that we need. You know the worst drivers? Women with kids in the cars.
And old men with pork pie hats and a pint.
Flat caps. Old men with flat caps. Yeah. And sales guys with their suit jackets.
Anybody advising a Vauxhall Vectra?
Travel through 2000 with the best sporting moments of the year. From the Olympics to rugby, racing to golf, and from tennis to football. The biggest names in sport take you through their most memorable and challenging sporting moments this year. The TalkSport Sports Review of the Year. New Year's Eve from 6 p.m. only on TalkSport. Clash of the Titans of TalkSport.
Gentlemen, what do you fancy next? We're going to talk capital punishment or equality for gays. What do you fancy?
Well, equality for gays is a non-starter. That's pretty rubbish. How can you be equal if you're gay?
Go on then. Why not? Why not?
Of course you can't. You can't be equal if you're gay. You're obviously...
You can be equal.
No,
you mean you can't be equal?
Nonsense. You are intellectually challenged.
Listen.
Being homosexual is listed by the World Health Society as a mental illness.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, it is.
No, you're trying to be outrageous.
I'm telling you the truth.
You know it is on documented evidence, the police have it, that you are bisexual.
Oh,
you
Dave,
know that.
Why did you say that? You promised me last night. You promised me, and I told you I wouldn't wear that number again if you did.
I'll tell you what, I cannot understand why anybody gets upset about anybody else's sexuality. I really can't. What a waste of time.
Yeah, James, can I ask you, you go in a club, you go in a bar, two guys snogging, kissing each other, does that not sort of, does that not want you to walk out of there?
What is wrong with you?
I'm sorry. I am sorry. No, not for me.
You used to be a footballer.
Yeah, but that's different.
You are...
and where do you see most men kissing each other? On a bloody football field.
Exactly. Now, I know, Alan, because we talked about this before, is got a problem. But haven't you got any gay friends?
No.
Or don't you know it?
No.
If your son told you that he was gay, how would you react?
Get yourself a flat.
No, you wouldn't.
No, because I've got 3 daughters.
Is it all right for your daughters to be lesbians?
Oh, please, James, don't ruin my Christmas.
Why?
Oh, no.
Don't you fantasize yourself about a little lesbian action, 2 women and you? You, a red-blooded heterosexual man, you'll fantasize about that. I know the rest of us do.
I'll be honest, that doesn't do a lot for me. Tommy?
You lying little
Tommy.
Help. I'm pleased that we've won the argument about capital punishment. People who always found it ludicrous. Ludicrous. Offensive. Disgusting, as my 13-year-old puts it. Disgusting.
How did we get onto that from him being gay?
Well, I've got good memory. My memory goes back at least 3 minutes to when he said, do we want...
Well, what
the
it means
question
is...
was, do we want to discuss gays or capital punishment?
It means lesbians and gays should be strung up. That's what it means.
I'm pleased that the abolitionists have won the capital punishment debate. I don't know if anybody around this table...
No, I'm totally anti your view. I'm afraid I'm totally pro-capital punishment.
Well, you've lost.
I used to be anti-capital
You might just as well hope that Germany beat England in the 1960s.
No, but tell me, this is...
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they did.
Over. You lost.
This is serious.
It's finished.
Yeah. This is a serious
never
point.
coming back.
I used to be anti-capital punishment. And I'm still anti-capital punishment for murder because, somebody's going to commit a murder isn't going to think of the consequences. And I think some people who've committed some murders, for whatever reason, the keeping Reggie Cray in prison until the end of his days was unforgivable when paedophiles are running around the streets after about 5 or 10 years. But, if we were to top a couple of these spotty little arrogant youths who think they can nick anybody's cars, go into their houses, nick their videos and everything else, if we hung a few of their spotty little carcasses in front of filling stations around this country, they'd soon stop.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen, is it? But
it might do if they don't stop. I'm getting sick and tired of this sort of youth crime.
I would happily have the death sentence for confirmed paedophiles, for rapists, and for those who did premeditated murder. I would have that as an option for the judge in the case. It doesn't mean to say that every one of them will get hanged. It doesn't mean to say that everyone will get topped, whichever method you choose.
And it should be
but
public
it means it should be there as an option.
What's the point of doing it privately? If you want it to be, do it publicly.
Draw a bigger
television.
Well, James, what you said earlier, anyway. What you said earlier was interesting about, for instance, hanging a few people, deterrent and all that. Now, the other side of the coin here is someone like Rose West, according to stats, she's been in jail for something like 5 years now. Now, it's unlikely she's going to get out, just like Reggie Cray, okay? It's unlike, poor fella. Not poor fella, he deserved to go to jail, but not for that length of time. Now, someone like Rose West, if she lives to the age of 80, according to stats here, it's going to cost the British taxpayer close to £1.5 million.
But Rose West is you can't put Rose West into the same thing as Reg Cray. I mean, it's a different... it's the same with Myra Hindley. I don't think Myra Hindley should ever be let out. I don't think she'd be a threat to anybody now. And I don't think she should have been executed either, because had she been executed, she would not now be a deterrent, possibly, to people behaving in that way. Because she's still there, we still talk about her. But, I go back to what Mike said about rape, and the recent worrying figures about the amount of women who cry rape, and then when a man has been prosecuted to a certain extent, he's been in the papers, everything else, and then they find out that no rape happened. I think we have to be careful about this.
Of course you have to be careful. I said absolutely proven. And in the case that you've mentioned, thank goodness the evidence is there to retract the original conviction. You wouldn't hang someone on the same day you convicted them. You'd have to retry the case. You'd have to do it with every bit of evidence possible.
But then we might get in a situation in America, where it's used as a political football. Look what George W. Bush has. He's topped more people apparently in Texas than anybody else.
Yeah. But if someone goes out to commit murder, goes into school and blows away a few kids, for me, what's the problem? If you hang them or put them in the chair, bang, gone. I have no problem with that.
All right, if you're talking about the smoking gun, and that is, you know, the way of describing someone actually caught in the act, where there is no doubt as to their guilt, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care how you kill them, just kill them.
Yeah.
But where there is doubt, then there must be justice. I'm a great believer. It's the one thing I believe in above all else, justice. Justice to me does include a death penalty being available to top those and remove those from society, those who are so hideous in every respect of their being that by them drawing breath, I feel ill.
Tommy's shaking his head here.
As something of a historian, I just remind you that you're living in the only country that I know that hangs people who are radio presenters because they just don't like their show.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
That was William Joyce, wasn't it? Do you know? They didn't like his show. He was a talk show host.
Is that why you shaved so they get the rope around his neck?
Again, you know, Mike, you've lost. It's over. We're not going to hang.
There's no winner or loser.
Again.
My view does not change because the majority of people appear to disagree with me.
European Union.
Actually, the majority of people do agree with you. That's a little frightening in a way, because I think if people, you know, this is a worry. This is going back to the police, not wishing to be too big a knocker of the police, because I think we used to have the best police force in the world. I certainly don't think we have it now. And I don't think, I mean, I'm worried about the situation not long ago where the police shot dead a guy for carrying a chair leg wrapped up in London. I'm worried about the state of training of our police, and I'm worried about the sort of evidence that over the years has proved to be completely wrong, and people who've done 17, 20 years in prison proved that they didn't commit the crime. This recent guy with a mental age of, I think, 11, who's been in prison for 27 years for a murder that's almost now certain that he didn't commit. They've actually now keeping him in again over this Christmas for another year, or until the case comes up, because the judge didn't have the papers in front of him in time, because the police hadn't got, or whatever. I think, you know, somebody's actually got to take our system of law and order in this country in hand.
Well, get rid of the jury system to start with, because the most flawed part of any legal system I've ever discovered anywhere is the jury system that we seem to rely on in this country to prove someone's guilt or innocence. 12 good men and true. You have a look out the window. Look at the first 12 people you see. Get on a bus, the first 12 people you see. Do you want those to decide on your guilt or innocence? Well, the only people who are available for juries are so thick.
There's a little bit more selection goes into it.
No, I don't think so.
Well, very little. No, well,
you can get out of being on a jury like that.
If you're not clever enough to get out on a jury, you're not clever enough to take part in any decision-making.
European Union, forget capital punishment. If you're part of that, forget it. Yeah?
European Union.
Sorry, what are we talking about?
European Union. Capital punishment. If you're part of that European community, the capital punishment doesn't exist.
We're not going to be part of that European community for much longer, Alan. Don't try and wind me up.
Don't frighten us to death.
For goodness sake, the sooner we get the foreigners back in their countries and leave us alone, the better.
Absolutely. Let's get back to trading with the people we actually speak the same language as.
You know, I have come up with an idea, and I don't know if I share it with all of you, my friends, of a new political party, and I launched the idea on my show about a year ago, called the English-Speaking Alliance. This will be available to all English-speaking countries in the world. Doesn't matter what colour, what religion, anything else. If you speak English, and to join the English-Speaking Alliance, you would then have your country would have to adopt English as its first language.
How well do you have to be able to speak English? How well?
Well, I mean, most people have English as a second language.
How well do you have to speak it in order to join this alliance?
Well, as well as
your main language.
Will Alan get in for a start?
There's a couple of pints of scrumpy. You want to hear him try and talk English?
Well, no, I don't think accents are a problem, but I think English, you know, English is the language, and I can't wait for the French to have to admit that English will be the language of the world.
It really is
the language of the world.
95% of all fax messages and all emails are in English. All air traffic control is in English. And 99% of the world's business dealings are done in English.
And you know, yet in this country, we still waste precious education time in teaching our children a language they won't need.
I never realised that, you and I are going to agree on so much. The one thing I've got against my children's education is that some silly person is trying to teach them French, German and Spanish.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
What a waste of time.
There's nothing wrong with that when your children go abroad, whether it's to ski in the French Alps, beautiful countryside.
They speak English.
They speak... No, they speak English better than you do. It's better for the brain, they can chat in the foreign dialect. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Tommy.
Yeah, I tend to agree that English is going to be the language that about a third of the world is going to be speaking in about 10 years' time. We mustn't forget the Chinese.
Why not?
Well, okay.
But they all speak English as a second language in China. No, they do. It's prerequisite. They have to learn English in schooling.
What we need to do, certainly we could talk about the curriculum, but what we do need to do is to teach English to our children as if it were a foreign language.
Properly, absolutely right.
So, yeah.
I hate to agree with you.
So that... Yes.
Really,
you mean get rid of estuary English?
Yeah.
You mean you get rid of three radio stations in London already?
No. You get rid of the grunting scenario of kids.
What it will mean is that our youngsters will be able to speak two languages, just like the French and the Germans who can speak their own language and English. Our youngsters will speak their own language and English.
That's a very good idea.
Hold on a minute.
That's a very, very good idea.
They'll be able to speak their own language and English.
Right, you speak your own language.
I'm speaking English.
Badly.
No, I'm speaking English.
Badly.
Globish.
Globish. Do you think I want to go and order a nice meal like William Shakespeare? You know,
because he was a Brummie. I mean, William Shakespeare is spoken in these very fine tones, but actually William Shakespeare was a Brummie. And if he'd have ordered for me, he'd say, "Where's the nearest bus?"
Tommy's got a very good point we should maybe explore, because, you know, one of the problems that a lot of education doesn't now, we do such a good job doing talk shows, because people learn how to use their voices and learn how to speak and how to put their points and everything else, which nobody else seems to show as any importance whatsoever. Nobody's grammar is ever corrected. Nobody is you know, told that they're speaking rubbish because they're sort of speaking slang.
I won't allow people to say basically.
Well, we all do those sort of things. I mean, but usually when we're thinking for the right word to say. But I mean, it's just a sort of... sorry, what did you say?
I must admit, though, grammar is very important. I think back to my schooling, I really do wish I'd spent more time.
So do we.
I really do. Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, I was stuck with teaching English for a period of time, and both in this country and in the United States.
You've done it all, haven't you?
Could you take Alan aside later?
Unbelievable.
What I always found was that it's important, first of all, that what the person is trying to say is worth hearing. So that's the first thing that you have to encourage. It doesn't matter too much.
We'd all be out of work if that was true.
And that's true enough, Mike. True enough.
Where are you from, Mike? Where are you from?
No, truly, if half the people that call our programmes are worth listening to, it'll be a miracle.
But only the people on my show are worth listening to. I don't, you know, people who come on my show are worth listening to. The others we just cut off. Unlike the BBC, who let every Tom, Dick and... Well, no, they don't. They have about 15 stupid women deciding who should go on the air. There's no freedom of speech with the bloody BBC. Aren't we going to have a go at the BBC?
Yeah, what else are we going to have a go at while we're here? Because we nearly finished our pudding now.
And there's only about 2 more bottles of wine left.
And that's sweet.
No, on a serious note, guys, I know James is very strong and Mike is. I want to hear what Tommy thinks, you know, on this gay rights equality for gays, on a serious note. How do you feel about that, Tommy?
I just don't have any problem with it. It must be a nightmare to discover your sexuality, because none of us choose it. It's given. I don't know how. It's an interesting one, that. To wake up and discover that you're not what's, you know, regarded as the norm. Must be even worse. For example, we touched on paedophilia. What a nightmare it must be. And how much the people who find themselves in possession of this ludicrously tragic, awful sexuality, how much they deserve our respect for the fact that they give it no action, no flesh whatsoever. There must be. Not every single person who finds that he or she is a paedophile goes out and does anything about it. They sit on it in silence and solitude for the whole of their lives. But they're stuck with it, because one of the few things you can't change, cosmetically, surgically, or by going on a course, is your sexuality.
And what you've just described is a mental illness, which is what I said originally.
Well, no. But, I mean, how can you... Why are we talking about... Why do people always talk about being gay and paedophilia in the same breath? You know, it's proven that the majority of paedophiles are heterosexual, not gay. Well, it's proven.
I don't know about it's proven. It's
proven.
Well,
sexuality is a curious... look, gentlemen, we all know, don't we? I mean, sexuality is a curious...
But nobody should impose their wish for sexual gratification on anybody who's not interested. And if we all did that, there'd never be a problem. You know, it doesn't matter what sort of sexual orientation you have, as long as you're not forcing it on anyone who doesn't want it.
Well, that's true enough. And if you are in a position to force it on someone else, then you are using what I believe rape and all the other sexual excesses that people go to are, and that is you're using your power. And you're on a power trip. I don't believe rape is very often a sexual assault. I mean, it is actually an exercise of you showing how powerful you are, and in fact, it's a vicious assault. It is not a sexual assault.
You see, we come almost full circle. We started off with religion, and we're nearly back there. Because recently, a number of church people have been convicted of interfering with children.
Yeah.
These are people who are supposed to live celibate lives. These are people who are supposed to be in trusted positions. And the hierarchy of the church, unfortunately, the Catholic Church involved, seem not to take it very seriously. I find the whole thing laughable. You know, we're so two-faced in this country. So many double standards. You've got this sort of stupid House of Lords and that ridiculous Baroness, whatever her name was, going on about how legalizing the age of consent or normalizing the age of consent for everybody the same is just going to open the floodgates of buggery. You know, as if you couldn't do that anyway. How ridiculous these people are. And then we could get on to let's get rid of the House of Lords totally once and for all, these unelected people. Kick them out.
Well, actually, I rather enjoy the House of Lords because
somebody to laugh
the quality of debate is so much higher.
Really?
Than that in the House of Commons.
I don't know how we can say that.
I have to say, I don't see too much of it, but...
No, I find the House of Lords debates are interesting, well structured. Their arguments are sound. They speak not from a political perspective, but from a point of view of common sense. And, in fact, were we to get rid of one of the Houses of Parliament, I would personally get rid of the 650 MPs, of who we have far too many. We don't need even half that number. Very few of them do anything to earn their bread, and the only reason they're there anyway is because they weren't intelligent enough to get a proper job. If we believe that MPs are there because they're intellectually superior,
very good point.
It is only because they weren't bright enough to get a proper job.
That is such a good point. I am amazed at the amount of time that I get to talk to MPs, of course, when they're not trying to find an excuse. Most of them don't talk to us anymore, of course. But they are so uninformed. I mean, look at William Hague the other day, who was going off on one, the leader, supposedly, of the opposition, trying to make points with the public and stick up for the police, and then use this a tragedy of the little boy who was killed recently. How on earth can a man be so stupid, or be surrounded by so many stupid people as to make that sort of mistake?
Well, don't you think that the stupid people that matter to a politician are all the electorate?
Of course.
But
you see, we don't understand our power. If we actually stop... You know, every time a Member of Parliament walks into the local whatever it is and opens the fete, they're all there tugging the forelocks. Yeah. These are servants. They are our servants. Yeah. They're there because we are too busy and too intelligent to be there.
Don't vote for them, only encourages them.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I haven't voted for 4 elections.
I've never voted. James?
Well, yes, I have, but I'm beginning to think...
How have you voted?
I've voted most ways, depending on the local politician that I was faced with, but I'm not...
Are you talking about you've actually voted for an individual MP because you were impressed with that person?
Yeah, oh yes, yeah.
But it doesn't work like that.
Well, no, I've realised that. I've grown up a little bit. I'm not voting anymore, because somebody might say I could persuade other people in the way they should vote.
The other question is, do you vote for yourself, James, or do you vote for the country?
Do I vote for myself or the country?
Good question.
Very good question. Well, I think I'll vote for... I don't know, really.
If you want to ask me the same question, I've no doubt I'll vote for me.
Yeah, I think I probably do.
If I voted, I would vote for the country. You're all right, Mike. You've got enough.
I mean, I think...
You've got a church on your land, for Christ's sake.
I think we do. You know, we think, oh, who's going to give tax breaks? Who's going to improve... well, yeah, we do vote for ourselves, don't we? But, you know, if we don't vote... In a way, the politicians get away with it, because if we were to vote them in and out more regularly, they'd have to actually stick to what they said they were. They know that the majority of people are not interested, they don't vote, so they get away with these ridiculous things.
On 1089 and 10:53 a.m. TalkSport.
Trevor, the MD wanted to know if you're around over the weekend. He needs to go through the last 4 years of sales figures with you. Can you give me a call back and let me know if that's okay?
Another reason to get away for a weekend with Avis. Rent a car for the weekend and get 3 days for the price of 2. Call 0870 60 60 100. Avis recommends Vauxhall cars. Rentals can be taken from noon on Thursdays and must include a Saturday night. Avis. We try harder.
I wonder if the boys will like my new suit.
Oh,
I think that went rather well.
Not all changes make as much sense as switching to Abbey National. It takes just 2 signatures, and we'll do the rest. And when you switch, you'll get free everyday banking, as long as you stay in credit. It's called Fair Banking.
Abbey National, because life's complicated enough.
For more information, call now on 0800 731 7774. Calls may be recorded or monitored. Abbey National bank account subject to status.
Dickin versus Boyd versus Whale in a bite-off-your-ear Clash of the Titans special on TalkSport.
The next general election, Labour safe, or...
No way.
No way.
No.
But William Hague, I can't get to like the guy.
Nor can anybody else. But when you think of the alternative, another 4 years or 5 years of the grinning jackanapes, I don't think anybody would put up with that. Also, Labour have just shot themselves in the foot so often. And I'm not making political points here, because I think all parliamentarians, all MPs, all those involved in politics are tarred with the same brush. They are all intellectually challenged. Anybody who wants to be an MP should be banned. Should be barred from doing so because they want to be one.
Mike, this
anarchy would ensue if we were to follow that.
This government has...
Hang on, give me one member of the Labour front bench that's ever done one job, apart from John Prescott, who was a steward on P&O liners. He's the only
Tony
person...
Banks.
He's not on the front bench.
He was, until recently, was the Minister of Sport.
But he's not on the front bench now. Give me one front bench Labour MP who's ever done a job apart from being in politics. None.
Well, I can't answer that because
barristers, aren't they? Anyway, Mike, that's really neither here nor there. If you want to talk about people who are living lives which are out of touch with the rest of us, then that's the opposition front bench, isn't it?
They're the same.
None of them have done a job. But interestingly, none of them seem to be interested in the things that ought to be the most important things as far as the British people and people around the planet are concerned. And that just being able to set up a family and help each other within your own 4 walls in a home. If you can run a family, then you can run a country.
Well, agreed, but we're not allowed to run a family because those we've elected to ensure that we're allowed to get on and run our family interfere so often in our daily lives.
No.
With their constant
they do, Tony.
And they just get in your body.
No,
This is
I mean, they make it the whole time. It's a matter of choice. If you decide to let somebody influence you, then they will.
No, the law influences you. Let me give you a most recent change.
I didn't cut you out as somebody who was so feeble as to actually pick up the papers.
Let me just give you an
read
example.
what they said in Parliament yesterday before you decide whether or not you're going to inhale or change your brand of toothpaste. For God's sake, your life is your own life. The things that you think are the things that you choose to think. The things that influence you are the things that you choose.
He's not going to concede a point because you know you're going to...
It's a philosophical point, and it's not one that is in any way...
Let's see how you cope with this. Let's see how you cope with this.
Any notion
about
our government...
Tommy, I keep on squealing like a banshee. You're not going to stop making the point. The most recent piece of legislation passed by this government regarding how you look after your family says that you, as a parent, cannot smack your child. The teacher, as in loco parentis, cannot smack your child. But a childminder, can smack your child.
But
now what sort of bloody nonsense is that?
But it only feels...
That's the law.
But we're not going to abide by that law like we don't abide by so many of the other stupid laws made by the stupid people in this country.
If I may.
Actually, that isn't a stupid law, Alan, with respect. If you are stupid enough not to wear your seatbelt, then perhaps you shouldn't be given any treatment unless you are paying...
Well, I'm surprised that it's coming from you. I'm very surprised.
On the contrary, I have always said that we would all drive much more safely if we had no seatbelts.
What do you want,
and we had
in the middle of
a pointy stick heading straight for our sternum. That would slow us down and make us drive safely.
Well, of course, then we would be able to return to a National Health Service that had enough transplant organs to go around, because since we started wearing seatbelts, there aren't enough kidneys, hearts or anything else to go around, because so many people got killed, young, fit people got killed in their cars, that there were plenty of organs to transplant. Now there aren't enough, because seatbelts have robbed our transplant surgeons of the raw materials of their trade. Aren't we filthy, rotten people?
Look, Mike, what it is, if I may...
It's true.
In the spirit of Christmas, if I may...
Which we get back to show that if we all took more responsibility about our own lives, we'd be better off.
Will you shut up? I'm fed up with being interrupted by you over there.
James, if you had anything interesting...
You remind me of a parrot I used to work with.
We listen.
He used to say about it. If it's in his mouth...
Another bottle of wine. Tommy, come on.
It's time to pass the port.
Right. Tommy, come on, fire away.
What you have a case of here, Mike, you know they say that if a copper's been a copper for 10 years, he thinks everybody's a criminal, because they're the only people he meets.
I didn't know that, but it's probably true, yes.
If you've been a journalist for too long... What? He's looking to see if I'm talking about somebody else.
Yeah.
If you've been a journalist for long enough, then you start to notice, you start to take politicians too seriously. This is Christmas. People are at home listening to this. They're with their families. This is where the focus of all our lives should be, and for most people actually is. You've quoted the law about smacking children, something I completely support. It's ludicrous that somebody 3 times the size of somebody else, who isn't even related to that person, should be somehow encouraged to commit what, if it were an adult, would be a common assault on that person. Okay. But, as James said, at great length, when he interrupted me, not the last time, at the time before...
I'm getting bored now, come on.
It's not something that actually affects us, because even though the law is there, none of us consult it, or even consider it, as we go through living our largely good, occasionally not quite so good lives.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
And if we consider our children need a smack, we will smack them.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Whether they deserve it or not. I mean,
exactly.
Well, I've never hit anybody...
That's just in case.
And I'll say this in a room full of men who are bigger than me. I've never hit anybody smaller than me, and I never will.
Yeah, don't expect us to feel the same way.
What, even... big kids? No, my 3 girls, if they're, when they were young, okay, I've still got little...
You smack girls?
When she's naughty, not so much now, because she's a clever girl now, but a few years ago, if she was naughty, yeah, she gets a tap in the legs.
Oh, God, I've got girls. I've got 3 girls. I've never smacked any of them. I've got 2 boys. I've knocked them all around the house.
Yeah. That's tragic.
I think, actually, to be honest, I don't think if you smack no. I think teachers smacking is out of order, because I think they don't. But I think, as a parent, if you have a very young child you can't talk to, if you have a 2-year-old that continually wants to run out of the garden gate and into the road, you're going to have to slap that child on the legs, probably.
Or tie up the garden gate.
You're failing.
No. Tommy, I tell you, Tommy, so many people would disagree with you on this.
Maybe they would,
so many people
they're wrong. I'm only qualified.
You're not going to change your view because you're in the minority, are you?
I am a qualified lecturer in child development.
Oh, please. Where does this man find the time to do all these jobs?
I told you he does something else.
I've kept myself busy.
No wonder.
Life is short. You've got to pack everything in. I might say, as my wife, a qualified practitioner in child development. And if you know what you're doing, then you don't even have to raise your voice to your child. You don't even have to be sarcastic. You don't even have to deny them rewards like sweets. You don't even have to send them to bed. They're your equals. They've got a lot to teach you. That's how it's worked out in our family. Maybe that's because we're professionals. Maybe it's because we thought long
to hate him, aren't you?
and hard before we decided to do...
He hasn't got any kids.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. Yeah, I've got two that I'm paying for.
Why would that be funny, Alan?
Well, you both earn enough, so don't whinge about it.
True.
Now, what about children's...
Hey,
at this time of the year.
Don't you start talking about money, you money-grabbing old...
Say, for what you earn and what you get for nothing.
Oh, excuse me. 2 hours a day, Dickin, eh?
Yeah.
Got the cigar out. The time he opens up, it says goodbye, thanks a lot. Here comes the midday news.
2 months a year skiing in Switzerland, Brazil.
Yeah. And how many cars do we drive?
One at a time.
Yeah. He drives up. Mind you, I must say, the man's a true professional. I've never known anyone who works from 10 to 12 who gets in before me in the morning, and I start at 6.
Yeah, I get in a quarter to 6.
Exactly. It beats me in the morning, James.
Seriously, why?
It's the only way I can get a parking space.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, but
That's
for 4 hours?
Tommy,
I'd rather lie in bed.
On your view on children,
yeah.
What about kids' manners these days, lately? Do you think children are polite as they used to be, or do you think it's better now?
Well, I guess probably it's worse, but that might be because they don't spend much time in fear any longer.
But is it worse, really, or are we just older? And as you get older, children look worse.
They challenge us from a younger age than they used to. They're turning into adults quicker than they used to. People say it's nutrition, people say it's cultural, but who knows? But it's a fact, isn't it, that boys now at the age of about 13 or 14 are beginning to find out what it's like, or want to find out what it's like to be an adult. What we have to bear in mind is the way they're behaving shows us what they think we're like, shows us what they think we think it is to be a man. So when they're belligerent, when they're loud, when they're abusive, when they're offensive, when they're making a step into the street, when they're treating us with no respect, they're trying to be like us. So who are we treating with low respect?
Do your children do that? With all your professional skills,
Shall I tell you what? I'm very...
Tommy, be careful, Tommy.
I'd like to answer that question.
Be very careful, Tommy, because you could be talking all of us out of a job.
I would like to answer that question.
I mean, 2 child development lecturers and they can't control their own kids.
I would like to answer that question. My son, the other day, a couple of weeks ago, in the high street, he said to me, "I'll prove it to you, Dad," because we talked about this for on and off for a while. He said, "I'll prove it to you, Dad." And so he did. And he walked across the pedestrian walkway where we live. And I watched. It took about 5 or 10 minutes. But sure enough, a little old lady veered out of her path, coming towards him, veered from the way she was walking. He was walking slowly with his head down, just as if he was in thought, and bumped into him. And then as she bumped into him, she went, "Watch where you're going, young man," see? And I said to him, how common is this? He said, "Oh, it's extremely common amongst people of a certain age and a certain disposition to want to catch out young ne'er-do-wells."
Well, all we want is a granny development teacher.
You're damn right. Honestly. Absolutely. They'll bump... and I watched, you see, years ago, I watched an old boy standing, apparently waiting to cross the road with a walking stick. He wasn't. He was waiting for cyclists, you see. And the minute a cyclist came along, he'd step into the curb. The cyclist would have to veer, and he'd wave his stick. This was his sport. I stood there, I was waiting for a bus. He did it again.
Tommy, where do you live?
I think that there are an awful lot of ill-mannered, dangerous, and
I agree with Tommy.
Of all ages.
No, I agree with you, Tommy.
Of all ages.
I think young people generally, I'm not talking about the yobbos who nick the cars, break into homes. They're a minority.
You mean there are others?
There are. And I think the majority of teenagers from maybe 13 upwards are far better, more eloquent than they ever were years ago. Much better. I think, however, the older people are very bloody rude. I find older people now almost impossible to tolerate sometimes because they're looking for an argument.
Well,
they're looking for an argument.
As we sit here, all the people that are visiting relatives today because, you haven't seen them for a year, why not? Because you don't like them. but you've invited them at some weak point in your life, about September. You said, why don't you come and spend Christmas with us? And now there they are in the house.
Well, you shouldn't.
I
never
do.
Perhaps they live too far away.
There's little Auntie Violet sitting in the corner with her sherry, and she's had a few sherries, and she hates her daughter-in-law, and she keeps saying to her son, have you had enough to eat, son? This is in his house. Have you had enough to eat, son? Does she feed you properly? And the wife is going, hello, Violet, and she loves you. You're doing bloody strangler.
You know what I'm doing
You
today?
imagine.
Do you know where I'm going? Going out for an Indian. Just me and my wife.
You mean an Indian meal?
An Indian meal.
Would you please say that? I find that so offensive.
Christmas. I'm astounded. I'm sure they're winding us up. Surely, please. You must be winding us up. You know, I mean, Tommy, we're going to tuck in.
We're going to tuck in
nice turkey, stuffing, cranberry. And he's going for an Indian. Where you go? You're going down the old chinkies.
What's English about turkey?
What do you mean we're saying? I don't care about English. I'm Scottish.
Yeah. Oh, there you are, then. They talk about tradition. I'm talking about English tradition.
He's about as Scottish as my...
I'm going to have a nice piece of beef. Good French beef.
Are you sure you haven't been eating it for a while now?
Somebody's been at the beef, but I think you lot have been at the port. I didn't get any. Who's got it?
Yeah. Tell me, do you look forward to Christmas, James? Seriously?
No, I mean, I'd like to look forward to it for the reasons that Tommy said, but no, I mean, I think it annoys me a lot now. It annoys me that people try and be something they are really not. I mean, it's a great idea. Let's have a couple of holidays a year. But why on earth do we have the sort of, thank you, the sort of thing that Christmas just annoys me. The cards, the presents, the pushing and shoving.
I like the presents. I like the presents.
I like buying presents for people.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I like buying presents for
what
people.
What have you got for us, then?
He's getting razor blades.
They both need razor blades.
There's not. I've just shaved mine.
Oh no! Do you know?
When you're buying a present for somebody, at least they are in your mind, and you're thinking well of them because you're thinking, what the hell can I possibly get him? And then you're seeing their face as they open the thing, and they're quite pleased that you thought about them.
I think Christmas makes a lot of people very miserable, and we don't. I mean, it's all right.
I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it,
seeing
but
people being miserable.
Yeah, I enjoy seeing people being miserable. And making them miserable. No, I actually enjoy the Christmas things. I enjoy the family thing. Yeah. I enjoy all the togetherness and the good food and the good company and the good wine and the rest of it. And the presents, I think that's all lovely. But it has no significance to me beyond that. I mean,
it's not supposed to, Mike. It doesn't for anybody any longer. No, it doesn't for anybody any longer.
I think you can do... what annoys me about it is that everybody is supposed to change their life at the same time. And if you don't want to, it's almost impossible to carry on.
Well, it is a good time to take stock, isn't it? I mean, you do notice the passing of the years at Christmas.
Well, maybe New Year's a time.
More than it, because I bet all of us can each do. I bet all of us can each do the presents that we got when we were sort of like 10, 11, 12, 13. A big present. And that's the thing that...
I had nuts and an orange in my sock.
Yeah.
You lying old git.
Yes, you did well. You did well, as they say.
He got 3 dinky cars, now he's got 3 real cars.
I also had a pencil, I think, one year. And that was good. If I gave my kids nuts and an orange and a pencil, I can tell you where they'd insert it pretty quickly. I mean, now they want something that comes in a very great box.
No, that's not true. Funnily enough, each of my children...
your children have been educated otherwise. You child development officer.
They do get a stocking, and they do get an orange, and it's quite interesting because we have oranges that sit on the kitchen table all year round, and they'll only eat one under sufferance. I've got to peel it and then say whilst the telly's on, one piece of orange, and if I'm lucky, one bit will go down. But if you give them the orange and it's theirs, you see, and it forms part of their pile of presents that they've got down by the sofa where they've opened their presents, it becomes a possession of theirs, and you see that the orange goes upstairs into their bedroom with the same kind of reverence as their game station and their albums or whatever else they've got, and they eat it. They eat the bloody
How long does it take?
Because it's theirs.
But how long does it take them to eat it?
I've no idea. They do it by themselves. They probably eat it in one go like a baboon. I have no idea.
Why don't we give them a pineapple? Keep them up there all day.
I'm astounded how much you think, Tommy. Honestly, first time I've had a long chat with you, I'm astounded how much you think and watch how your children... You know, as far as I'm concerned, there you go, girls, you know, take it or leave it. You know, there you go, if you want it. If you don't, so what?
Yeah, but you started life as a footballer. You're common.
Not common.
I don't know how hard you do think about it, actually. I just remember my own childhood.
Trust me, you do, Tommy.
I remember my own childhood as faithfully as I can. I hold on to what it felt like.
Did you enjoy it?
I don't think I did as much as I pretended I did. Up until recently, because you know that you always, yes, I had a happy childhood. Well, what do I mean by that?
Did you?
I think it was mixed. I think childhood is a very mixed time. It's
Did
a time,
you?
Oh, I did.
a time of fears.
Yeah, I
and
think
deprivations
I
as
can
well
actually,
as pleasures.
Yeah, I do. I can never remember. Both my parents are dead now, and I can never remember a time when they argued.
Strange.
I can never
remember a time my parents didn't.
But I hated school, you see. I used to make myself sick not to go to school.
Yeah,
I really... People say, oh, school was the best days of my life. I loathe it.
I used to say, as Tommy did, that I had a happy childhood. Until I thought of it, not that long ago, I started to think, did I have a happy childhood? And then I looked at the life my kids have got now, and I thought, Christ, they're having a happy childhood because they got me to look after them. When I think what happened... well, the way I was looked after, it doesn't compare.
Yeah, but we didn't know anything better.
I'm a much better parent than my parents were.
No, I don't think I am. In fact, I don't think I'm a good parent all round. But I think my family were there. They were a family. They were devoted to bringing up their children. They did all the sort of normal things. I've never done that.
Well, you don't have to think too hard about being a parent. If your heart's in the right place, then you don't
need to be
get it wrong
qualified
very often.
You don't need to
I think people should read a book or two.
I enjoy greatly doing things for my kids.
Yes.
See, I think I've always treated
my
my kids as individuals and not given the benefit of... Although now, I probably treat them when they're adults, I probably treat them like they're 12 years old. Because they never grow up in your own eyes.
Well, you're always a parent, they're always a child.
But James, you raise an important point about our schools. In the course of training to be a teacher, I had to read up on why education is organised as it is in this country. And what I stumbled on amazes me about the Act which still governs all the secondary education in this country. In 1944 it was... they decided that what we needed was a particular type of secondary education in this country, and that it should be compulsory, and that it should be organised along certain lines. And that 99% of that act is still in place and still governs what our schools are and what happens to our schools, and is still the overriding purpose why all our teenagers are sent to school. It was to win a war. It was to create a band of youngsters who would know how to march, who would know how to fall into line, and who would know how to obey orders without asking. And we're still
doing it.
We've still got schools, the main purpose of which is to produce robots.
Yep.
Like that, and not to denigrate those who fought in the war, but in 1944 the army said, we don't want to have to spend 18 weeks with these conscripts teaching them how, well, the things that I just mentioned. We want them ready to go and fight. But the trouble is that our schools are still organised along those lines.
I know, and that's why there are problems.
The purpose of our education is to create a successful state, which it kind of is, but the purpose of our education, just as the purpose of having children, should be to nurture people who have the maximum chance to be contented within their lives.
You see, our schools are by and large, though, still Victorian in their approach, and having, you know, a number of kids looking at a teacher, and that teacher writing things on a blackboard, etc.
A chalkboard.
A chalkboard, sorry. Can't you say blackboard anymore?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway,
well, it's all overhead projectors now, boys.
Yeah,
but
I'm sorry. But it's the same thing, and I'm sure there are better ways to impart knowledge. In America, it's slightly different. People don't seem to have such a them and us attitude. Here, however trendy and however young the teacher is, soon they lose that, and it's, you know, we've got to fight them and get them to... And you're absolutely right. If the people, the youngsters now, thank goodness, probably because of television and radio and everything else, and people know more, you wouldn't be able to get people to go and throw themselves down trenches like they could in the First World War. They wouldn't do it now. They wouldn't do it. I think that's a great improvement.
I think there's a wider point there as well. I was saying to my kids, and probably you may have talked this over with your own kids your own way, just how proud are they to be British? And would they fight for their country? It was when we were watching a war film the other night, and they said, God, I said about 1914-18 war, about all those people who died in the trenches, very, very young, and they pretended they were older just to go there and get killed. And I was saying to my boys that they're 15, twins, I'm saying, you know, would you fight for your country? Would I hell?
Really?
Would I hell?
If they taught the First World War, I just read a great book, Sebastian Fulk's Bird Song, it's called. Fabulous book. Excellent. Guys, really enjoyed your company. I really have.
Wish I could say the same.
The 2 hours is gone like that. James is off to the Indian. Tommy's off the library. Mr. Dickin and I are off to the pub. As Mike and James would say, Happy Yuletide. James and I would say Merry, Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us.
From the three wise men plus Alan Brazil, we'll see you in the new year.
Yes, so we off.
On 1089 and 10:53 a.m. Talk Sport on the hour sports update and headline news from the Sky News Centre.
It's